Nobody with any sense, I think, would throw the word perfect around when it comes to how things work in any given society or group of people. I don't think that that's ever happened, and I don't think that it ever will. That having been said, I think that there's an argument that things can be pretty darn good among a given group or even multiple groups of people on planet Earth. And I have to tell you that I think right now we're bordering on that place in the United States. In fact, the reality is we're probably moving away from it, having come pretty darn close to that place in the fairly recent past. Now, you can make the argument that some things that we're doing are pushing us closer to that. But I wanted to talk today about the idea of changes in attitude on the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics, which is what you're looking at as we speak. Hi, I'm your host. I'm Kurt. Glad to have you aboard today, whether it's on YouTube, on the podcast, or on Rumble, or for that matter, anywhere else. It is Tuesday, the 23rd of March of 2021 today. Hope you're doing well. Hope things are going good for you. But like I said, I wanted to sit and discuss this idea of changes in attitude. And I wanted to point some things up that I think some people are not missing exactly. It's just something that's sort of not on their radar, it seems. They're not even trying to miss it, if that makes sense. They're not even thinking about it. And it is this. Societies rise and fall. And part of the thing that determines whether or not a society will rise and fall is how that society deals with various things that are going on within that society. And when attitudes towards things change, sometimes that can be a positive thing, but sadly, far more often than not, there are negative consequences to the changes that occur. Okay? And I believe we're coming to a place where we're so unable to see the level of success, of ability, of good that we've achieved to this point, that we're now working to basically destroy ourselves in the process of some of the changes that we're making. Now, let's be clear. Every society, every group makes changes. That's how that works. And I'm not trying to say otherwise. I'm not trying to sit here and tell you we shouldn't make changes and we shouldn't try to improve our situation. But the question you have to ask yourself is, are we improving our situation? So when people experience changes in attitude, and those changes in attitude actually make things worse, maybe they ought to look at those things and consider whether or not the things that they're doing are constructive for the society in which they presently find themselves. Right? So, for example, one of the things that's kept American society alive for quite a while now has been an attitude towards two people coming together and raising a family together as one, not necessarily agreeing in every regard, but generally agreeing, generally holding with the idea that they were going to come together and be parents for children. And of course, there's the benefit of being together one for another, right? Where one person's, what was it somebody said recently? I think it was Rafael Cruz, Ted Cruz's dad, who was apparently a pastor, and he said, basically, look, marriage is not some 50% proposition. Marriage is a 100% proposition. You both put 100% into it. If you don't, it fails. Okay? And I don't care if you call the relationship marriage or not. I don't care what you call it. Married, that relationship, that man and woman coming together to raise children in a relationship. And I know people will argue with me, well, what about woman and woman? Well, what about man and man? Well, what about woman alone or man alone? I'm not trying to argue any of that at this moment, even though I have my specific perspectives on it. That's not in the argument today. What's in the argument is whether or not people are committed to being in that relationship and working to raise their family together, and by the way, working to support each other when they need support as well, right? These are all things that have to happen if a couple, again, I'm not going to get into the details of whether or not there can be 3 or 4. I'm not going to get into any of that. Let's just take the most basic building block. Let's just talk about a man and a woman come together and produce a child, and then take appropriate action where that child is concerned. This is what I'm talking about. Okay? The most basic thing. Whether you want to add to that or change that, personally, I have my problems or my disagreements with that, but I'm not going to get into them here. The point is, when you decide that you're going to come together with another human being and produce a child, and then you refuse to support that child in what you do, there will be problems. And that goes for the other person involved in the situation as well. Even if there are difficulties when you're doing it, everyone is better off if you choose to support those children, and preferably with 100% of yourself. The same thing applies to another concept, and the concept is that of industry. Whether you think so or not, a society cannot continue to live in abundance if people in that society take from it but don't work to give to it, don't work to add benefit, add value in that society. I don't care if you're baking bread or stocking shelves. I don't care if you're a lawyer or a doctor. I don't care what you do that makes you get up every day, whether you're a wholesaler. I don't care. But the thing is, if you sit back on your duff and allow the rest of society to produce, and you use whatever it is that society produces, then you're going to be something that amounts to part of the problem. Look, we've already got people who can't produce, okay? And we have to look after those folks, and I'm not saying we don't. When people can't produce, we have to work to look after them. Now, I'll argue that there are some out there who say that they can't, and they're lying to themselves and they're lying to others. But I'll also say that there are people out there who legitimately, whether for a time or in all time, cannot produce, cannot do what needs to be done. For whatever reason, any number of reasons, mental, physical, emotional, psychological, various reasons, that's true. And again, it can be temporary, it can be permanent. But the thing is, by and large, my attitude is, if you don't contribute to society in some way that's meaningful to that society, not meaningful to you, that's meaningful to that society, you are essentially a drain on that society. Now, again, are there reasons where that can be reasonable, where that can be appropriate for a time or even permanently? Yeah, there are. But for the most part, if you can contribute, you should contribute. And the argument that you can't because, you won't because society expects things of you that you don't want or whatever, that you don't want to deal with or whatever, my answer to you is, well, then why are you taking from society? Because they are apparently expecting things of you that are unreasonable, but that means that they're expecting things from others, in your opinion, that are unreasonable too. Right? Yet you're still taking from society. All of this having been said, the changes in attitude away from industry, the changes in attitude away from monogamy, away from people trying to raise their children together, away from people trying to support that other person with whom they're in a relationship, all of this I see as a major problem and something that we must deal with. I know people are going to look at me as, quote, politically incorrect or whatever. They're going to have to do that. That's just going to have to happen. It's getting time for us to understand that we must be a integral part of that relationship, and that we must be an integral part of society, and our refusing to do so degrades society, and it is, as far as anybody can tell, what causes breakdown in society, and societies ultimately to go the way of the dinosaur. All right, I'm past my time, so I need to go ahead and wrap this up. Again, today is Tuesday, the 23rd of March of 2021. We've been talking about changes in attitude. Tomorrow's subject on the Daily Summation is going to be leadership. I want to sort of talk about that subject, particularly from a Christian perspective, because that is my perspective, so it's the one that I'm likely to use. In the meantime, I hope that you have a good day. It's a little bit dreary and a little bit cool here, but again, it is spring, and so that's not all that surprising. Hope things are going well for you, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow. The speaker on this edition of the Daily Summation is Kurt Schubert. This video was recorded on Tuesday, the 23rd of March of 2021. The Daily Summation is created for Kurt's Religion and Politics. Thanks for watching this edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I hope you found it entertaining or instructional, or maybe both. If you want to see more from me, you can go to blogs.kpschubert.com. That's blogs.kpschubert.com. I am on Twitter, Parler, and Minds.com. My handle on each of those is @kpschubert. That's @kpschubert. I have a Rumble and a YouTube channel. They are the Kurt's Religion and Politics channels on Rumble and YouTube. I have a Facebook page. The Facebook page is Kurt's Religion and Politics as well. I am on Patreon. If you want to support me, that's one of the better places you can do that. And you will find me at Kurt's Religion and Politics on Patreon. I have a podcast. The podcast is podcasts with an S. .kpschubert.com. That's podcasts.kpschubert.com. I think you should be able to find me with relative ease on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify as well. The best way I find to do that is to look for Kurt's Religion and Politics. You can try to use the Daily Summation. I find that it doesn't work as well as a general rule, but you can always try that. I'm glad to have you aboard today, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow.